Chapter 4. Sister Frances grabbed my ear and led me from the office. "Now see what you've done," she scolded. "Those nice people won't take any more kids thanks to you. It's hard enough to find places to house you kids without. What's the use?" She pushed me through the day room door and left me. I once again stood in the middle of what seemed to be 1,000 staring eyes. This time I smiled. "Jennings!" Mark shouted. He was just coming in from the yard and he was covered with snow. As I made my way through the kids, one or two of them patted me on the back. In a strange sort of way, I was home. "Well, that didn't take long," Mark said. "Long enough. I'm starving. When do we eat?" "Soon, pretty soon. Either you're getting like me or they didn't feed you." "They didn't feed me." I sat down at one of the checkerboard tables. I held my aching stomach. Some of the kids gathered around to hear the tale of the Carpenters. "Mrs. Carpenter is crazy," I said. "She cursed all the time, yelled and screamed at me, and made me sit at this little tiny table the whole time I was there." Some of the kids made faces, others just stared at me. "It was awful," I said. "She gave me this gluey stuff that smelled like dirty feet. I wouldn't eat it. Then she beat me up." I lifted my shirt to show them my marks. After a time, the group of kids drifted off. I stayed talking to Mark. "Oh, wait," I said. "I got something to show you." I took out the picture of Doggy. "What do you think?" He looked long and hard at the picture. "Don't show this to Doggy." We laughed. "Jennings!" someone called out. I looked up and saw Stacy in the doorway. Her 2 hands were touching her lips, like the way you hold your hands in church. Tears were in her eyes. I stood up when she reached me. I took her outstretched hand and she kissed my cheek. "Oh gosh," I said. I slid back down into my seat. My face grew very red. She sat down. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said. I didn't think so either. "Some of the kids in the yard told me a boy had just returned from an awful home. I didn't know they were talking about you. I'm sorry they treated you so badly." Oh gosh. Click. I shot straight out of my chair, then panicked. I couldn't find 26's funny ears. The second click sounded and the kids lined up. I stayed where I was and covered my ears as a nun I hadn't seen before approached me. "Well," she said. "I don't know where I'm supposed to be, sister. I just got here." My heart pounded. I didn't want to be punished just now. I was too hungry for that. "Come along," she said. She took my hand. She placed me at Mark's table. My new number was 12, just 3 places away from Mark. We managed to smile at each other. I watched the sisters serving meatloaf. My mouth watered and my stomach ached. I gobbled down everything in minutes, including some bread and butter. I began to feel sick. My head started spinning and my stomach ached even more. "Sister, I'm going to be sick," I called out. Sister Frances was there in a flash to erase me from the room. I just barely made it to a sink in the kitchen before it all came up. Sister Frances held my head and my shoulders. "Get the nurse," she told someone. She sat me down on a chair. When the nurse came in, she felt my forehead and asked me how I felt and what was wrong. "I don't know, ma'am." "Well, what did you eat this morning?" "Nothing." "And last night?" "Nothing." "Oh, wait, I did eat a box of Jell-O powder." "Jell-O powder? No wonder you're sick." "Why did you eat Jell-O powder?" Sister Frances asked. "I was hungry, sister. I had to eat something." "Didn't they feed you?" The tears came to my eyes. I shook my head no. "Not at all?" the nurse asked. Again, I shook my head no. Sister Frances sat me down at a table in the kitchen. She ordered one of the kitchen sisters to bring me some soup. "No bread," she said, "just the soup." She brushed back the hair on my head and laughed. For a moment, she seemed different, a little like Sister Claire. I finished the soup. Sister Frances came back and took me through the now empty dining room to the outside hall. We entered the stern nun's office and she sat me down. "Now, Jennings, I want you to tell Sister Margaret and me about your stay with the Carpenters." At first I hesitated because I was nervous, but then I told them everything. They listened in silence. I said I was sorry for breaking the bowl and the window. I thought they would be angry with me, but they weren't. I told them about the curse words Mrs. Carpenter used all the time. I wouldn't say the words, but I did use the first letter of each of them. I showed them my welt marks, and then I showed them my picture of Doggy. "What are those things beside him?" Sister Margaret asked. "Hamburgers." She laughed. Sister Frances took me to the day room. I sat near the glass doors and watched some of the part-timers playing in the yard. Stacy was helping with the snowman. Mark and the other lifers were at school. At bedtime, Sister Frances handed me Doggy. I hugged him. He felt so soft and good. I carried him to bed number 12 and made a place for him. I showed him his picture. He thought it was a good likeness. I waved to Mark and he waved back. I slid beneath the covers and brought Doggy close to me. "I love you, Doggy," I whispered. I closed my eyes to sleep. I was very tired. After breakfast the next morning, we were clicked into the playroom. Some of the kids got their coats and went into the yard. Mark and I, as well as some other kids, stayed in. It was too cold. Click. We sat at attention. Sister Frances called Stacy. Mark and I looked at one another as Stacy cautiously approached Sister Frances. They left the playroom. "What do you think?" I asked. Mark shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe she's being lent out." "Oh, gosh," I shuddered. "But maybe she's going home," he added. "Yeah," I smiled. "Maybe she's going home." The sudden happy thought faded. It was replaced by a feeling I hadn't felt before. "Now you know what I mean," Mark said dryly. He pushed his glasses back on his nose. "What?" "About the kids' rule. No friends," he said. "It's hard to explain the feeling. You just feel it." "I feel it," I mumbled. Stacy burst into the room. "I'm going home," she screeched. The room fell into silence. Some of the girls gathered around her. After she spoke to them, she came over to Mark and me. "I'll think about you," she said. Her eyes sparkled. She looked beautiful. "I'll think about you too," I said. "If you ever get to Elmhurst," she broke off. I nodded my head. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Bye," she said. "Bye. Bye, Mark. Bye, Stacy." She slipped out the playroom door. I looked for a long moment at the closed door. My hand was covering my cheek and the kiss. "Bye," I said to no one. "Come on," Mark said. He tugged at my arm. "It's better to forget about her as soon as possible." He spoke like a wise old man who had experienced these things so many times before that you just had to listen to him. He nodded his head. "It's better." It took me quite a few days to forget about Stacy. Well, not exactly forget about her, but at least be able to get through the day without thinking about her too much or longing that much more for home. One morning, Mark woke me up. "Get up," he said. He was excited about something. "What's up?" "I gotta show you something." He ran off into the bathroom. I got out of bed and followed him. I was still very sleepy. I walked with my eyes a little open and a little closed. "Well?" "You'll see," he grinned. "You'll see." He looked around and then reached into his laundry bag. He pulled out his bear brownie. "He escaped." "Shh." He put his finger to his lips. "He escaped," I whispered. "Last night," he said quietly, "he somehow got stuck under my pillow. They didn't collect him." "Wow, that's terrific." "Shh. That's terrific," I whispered. I spent the rest of the day planning Doggy's escape. Night finally came. I anxiously waited online for Doggy. Sister Claire came in. "Sister Claire!" I shouted. I slapped my hand over my mouth. I was so surprised to see her, I'd forgotten the rule of silence. "That's all right, Jennings," she said. She put out her hand for me to come to her. I ran from my place in line. I reached her and threw my arms around her waist. She leaned down and kissed the top of my head. "Where have you been?" I asked. "I was on retreat." "What's retreat?" "That's where sisters go to pray." "Oh, that don't sound like much fun." "Well, it's fun for me," she smiled. She turned and unlocked the cabinet. She opened it and handed out the animals. She handed me Doggy. I tucked him under my arm. As I passed Mark's bed, I winked and he winked back. I placed Doggy down on the bed and climbed in after him. We slid beneath the covers. "I got a plan," I said. He was anxious to know what it was, so I told him. He was as excited about it as I was. In case things didn't go very well, I gave him an extra kiss and a hug. I tucked him under my pillow and I lay back. Sister Claire came over to me. "And how have you been?" she asked. "All right, sister. I heard you had a bad experience." "I did?" "At the carpenter's." Oh, yeah, it was awful. I made a face. Sister Margaret isn't going to send any more children there. Listen, Jennings, she brushed the hair off my forehead. I want to say goodbye to you. Goodbye? I sat up. Where are you going? I've been reassigned. I'm going to teach at a girls' school in Queens. In Queens? Oh, gosh. I fell back on my pillow. No, don't be sad, she said. You promised to be a good soldier for me. Oh, gosh, but I'll miss you, sister. I know. I'll miss you too, she said. I'll pray every day for you, all right? Well, it's not as good as seeing you. No, she laughed. It's not as good as seeing me, but it's the best I can do. Oh, all right, if it's the best you can do. I sat back up and put my arms around her. I hugged her. She hugged me back and then placed me back down on the pillow. She brought the blanket up to my chin. Where's Doggy? Doggy? Yes, Doggy. Remember the brown and white fuzzy thing you sleep with every night? Oh, that Doggy. Yes, that one, she laughed. Where is he? Oh, he's around. Around where? I lifted my pillow and took him out. Well, what's he doing under there? He was just sleeping. She smiled. You know, Jennings, if Doggy were under your pillow, when I collect them later, I might miss him. Really? Really? Maybe you ought to keep him tucked under your chin, where he belongs, she said. She put him alongside me, under the blanket. Sister, why do you do that? Do what? Cage the animals at night? Well, she looked up and out through the barred window before answering me. We don't want to, Jennings, but we have to. You see, the animals that are given to us, we have to take care of. If we didn't cage them up in one place, we might lose them. They might get hurt or damaged. It's not the best thing, but it's the only way we have to take care of them. But if somebody loved one of them, I asked, wouldn't it be a good idea to let them have one? To keep, I mean? Yes, it would be, but not everyone would love them and take care of them as you would. I wish I could give them all away tomorrow. She looked at me. There were tears in her eyes, but I can't. My heart would break if I saw just one of those animals lying by the wayside, uncared for, unloved. No, Jennings, it's better if we keep them together. She kissed my forehead and left. I hugged Doggy and thought about what Sister Claire had said. I knew I couldn't take Doggy now. I knew he'd understand. Doggy, I whispered, if I ever do take you, I promise I'll take good care of you and love you. I awoke to the sound of a thud. I popped my head out from the covers to see what had made the noise. The sun was just starting to come up over the building across the courtyard, so I knew it was too early to get up. The thud was the boy in the next bed. He had fallen out. He was just getting to his feet and rubbing his head when I thought of Doggy. He was gone. I looked at the other sleeping kids. Their animals were gone too. I pulled the cover back over me and snuggled to my pillow. Suddenly I sat up and lifted my pillow. There was Doggy, looking up at me. A note was attached to him. I took it off and read it. Dear Jennings, when I said praying for you was the best I could do, I was wrong. Let Doggy out once in a while for air. Most of all, be good to him. Our kind of animals need lots of love. Forever in my prayers, Sister Claire. I hugged Doggy and put him under my pillow. Each morning, Mark and I put our friends in our laundry bags. At night, we took them to bed. We shared a secret that somehow made us a little different from the other kids. It made us a little closer. The weather was getting very cold. Most of the kids stayed in the day room. Sister Frances told us it was Wednesday, the 21st of December, and Christ's birthday was just 4 days away. She gave us some paper and paste and scissors to make some cutouts for the blackboard. Mark was making a snowflake while I was making an angel. I was telling Mark how Christmas was on the outside. What you doing? Butch asked. Making cutouts, I said. That's kid stuff. Yeah, we know, Mark said. We're kids. What you want to go and make that junk for? It's not junk, it's angels and snowflakes for Christmas. It's junk. You sound like Scrooge, I said. Who? Ebenezer Scrooge, you know Scrooge from the story? No, who's he? He's the guy who hated Christmas. Didn't you ever hear of him? Butch shook his head no. So did Mark. Well, last year a sister from my school told us a story. Let's see. I can't think of the name of it. A Christmas Carol, I remembered. It was all about this guy who hated Christmas. Will you tell us the story? Mark asked. Yeah, will ya? Butch sat down. Sure I will. I told the story the best I could. As I talked, more and more kids began to gather around. Some of those who knew the story helped me in the parts I got stuck on, but the story went along very well. Soon every kid in the room was sitting on the floor or in chairs or on the tables, listening to the story. Their wide eyes bulged at the parts of the different ghosts. When the story was finished, everyone drifted off. Mark and I returned to our cutouts. Butch joined us. We talked about Christmas at the house. They told me the nuns sing a lot and put the baby Jesus in his manger. Do we get a Christmas tree? I asked. No tree. The sisters don't like trees, I guess, Mark said. Do we get presents? Both Mark and Butch shook their heads no. Well, that's okay, I said. I didn't always get a present on the outside either. My mom didn't always have enough money for presents. I never got a present, Mark said. Never? Mark shook his head. Some lifers got presents when they were little. If they were out during Christmas, they got some. Did you ever get a present, Butch? Yeah, I got one a long time ago when I was real little. What was it? Oh, it wasn't anything special. What? It was a panda bear. Oh yeah, Mark said. Where is it? What happened to it? Oh, it's gone. The lady who gave it to me took it back. She said she'd save it for me if I ever went back. Jennings, a nun called me from the doorway. A cold chill ran all over me. I looked at both Butch and Mark. Jennings Birch, she called again. Oh gosh, now another Carpenter's. I put down my angel and got to my feet. I approached the nun. She took me from the room. Am I being lent out? I asked. I don't know, son. I was only told to fetch you. Oh gosh, I don't want to go away again. I want to stay here. I felt the stinging in my nose. She opened the office door and there was Mom. Mom! I cried. I ran into her open arms. She kissed and hugged me. I cried uncontrollably. Shh, dear, I'm here now. I couldn't talk. I tried, but I couldn't. I leaned into her and cried. She smelled like Mom. It was really Mom. Where were you? I yelled at her through my tears. I clenched my fist and hit her. Don't hit your mother, Sister Margaret snapped. I fell back into Mom and cried harder. I'm sorry. Shh, Jennings, don't cry anymore. She hugged me and kissed my forehead. Come on now, stop crying, she said. After a few minutes, to calm myself, I asked, Mom, can we take Mark home with us? Mark? Who's Mark? Don't be foolish, Jennings, Sister Margaret said. Go now and get your things. Mark is my friend. He lives here. Can we take him home, can we? What will his mother say? He don't got no mother. He's a lifer, an orphan. Can we take him? Jennings, I'm sorry. I just can't take... Certainly she can't. Sister Margaret stood up. She was mad. Now, that's enough of that. Go and get your things. She pointed toward the door. Now. But... No buts. Now. Oh, gosh, I whined. I left the office. I went into the dormitory and packed up all my things, including Doggy. I left through the rear door for the day room. Mark and Butch were still at the table working on their cutouts. I approached them. Butch looked up and saw me first. Are you going? He asked. Yes, I said. Home? Mark asked. I nodded my head yes. Butch crumpled up the cutout he was making and pushed himself away from the table. Bye, he said quietly. He walked over to the glass doors and pushed them open. Bye, I whispered. I turned over the angel I was making. I wrote on the back of it, to my friend Mark from Jennings and Doggy. He stopped working on a snowflake and took it. He looked down at it. A single tear splashed off the back of his hand. Thank you, he said. I'll miss you, Mark. I offered him my hand and he took it. He never took his eyes off his present. He just reached across his body toward his shoulder and met my hand. He shook my hand and then pushed his glasses back on his nose. I walked over to the day room door and opened it. Wait, he cried out. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. He rushed at me and grabbed my arm. I threw my arms around him. He cried into my shoulder, Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. He shook so hard I could hardly hold him. The 100-year-old nun came over to us and took Mark from me. He buried his face against her and cried. I slipped through the day room door for home.